Not knowing the inner workings of reality creation is leaving you in a spot where you are becoming a victim because you don't know how to create, you don't know how to take responsibility and what to take responsibility for. This video is going to show you a holistic approach on the whole concept of reality creation. We're going to be breaking it down from microcosm, so that means our own individual perspective, our sentient perspective, versus the macro perspective, the nature of everything. And then we're going to break it down into two compartments, into matter and energy. And being able to perceive it this way will allow you to become a better reality creator. You can attract because you become the corresponding energy to the thing that you're acquiring. So without further ado, let's get into it. We start off with the physical aspect and work inwards. Before we start breaking down the physical reality, I want to give you a bit of a feel of what's going on in the collective. Most people think in the compounds of three-dimensional reality, how they see things with their five senses. So how they see things, how it smells, how it tastes, how it looks like, how it sounds. But this is only a small percent of what is out there. So if you wanted to perceive more of reality, you would be looking into the causal realm rather than the effect realm, which is the physical realm. But this is a good way to conceptualize it. I know it looks a little bit complex right now, but that's because there's many elements to it. But I'll make it simple. To begin with, let's think about the self, who most of us think we are. Most think that we are three-dimensional beings. And that's true for this game. We are incarnated into planet Earth, and we are stored in the vessel of a human. But most people don't perceive it like that. Most people think that they are the human. They're not the essence that is eternal and unchangeable. They haven't woken up to truth of who they are. So the first aspect that you must comprehend about the self is that we're much more than our physical avatar. We're much more than a human. Because there is a study, and I will link the study below for anyone that's curious, about how little we see of reality, because reality exists in a big spectrum of light, and some of it is invisible to the eyes that we have, the two eyes that we have. We only see, out of that whole spectrum, 0.0003%. So this is why you might hear around the reality creation industry, the area, the paradigm, that reality is an illusion. And illusion just means not the full truth. It doesn't mean it's a blatant lie, it just means it's the expression. Like a mycelium network, imagine it like. Everyone's connected in this invisible network under the ground. And then the little mushrooms that come out, they are the expressions of the roots. Like, they are mycelium, but the mushroom is like a fruit of it. We're like a fruit of the all. We came out of this world, not into it. So that means we contain the essence of what it is that we're in. And many scientists love to perceive it. Like when you go down into like physics and metaphysics and quantum like principles, and the whole concept of quantum physics is a madness. Like, it makes you really think about it, because it's hard to think about in the terms of just like 3D, because when you zoom in and when you zoom out, things don't follow the general pattern. But we're going into a tangent. Physical reality, we're much more than the lump of meat, and we're much we exist in a place that's far more vast than the physical reality that we see with our five senses. Like here you see a little conception of the planet, you see a little conception of the moon. This is what it looks like, right? But it's just, again, it's 0.003% of what actually is. There is much more in the energy side that we'll be breaking down. But let's go down through all of the things that you need to comprehend about reality, and then we'll go into the causal side of things, because this is the realm of effect. Most people who are stuck in three-dimensional materialistic perspectives, they don't deep the unseen and the causal aspects of life, which is the energy side, the side that you don't perceive with the five senses. You perceive with the energy, with the sixth sense, with the different... I know this sounds a little bit like woo-hooey, but the sixth sense is simply intuition. It's simply the part of you that knows stuff without even needing to have gone through the process of learning it, just because it's kind of like you've tapped into that frequency, so now you're more receptive of it. And intuition can be different for different people, because intuition is kind of like your guiding force, that the truth within you that you should listen to, because there's many things that roam across our attention, including thoughts that aren't really ours. They're thoughts that have been imprinted on us by conditions that we've been through. So we start thinking things that we don't identify with, and that's okay. The whole concept of trying to control your thoughts isn't healthy. It's more about your general well-being, because your general well-being is the energy and the emotion. Yeah, like it's the emotion and emotion, energy, emotion, and that's what we have to use as a causal aspect of ourselves, as a part of creation. So the physical aspect, we have the energy storehouses conceptualized within this me. So there's like 7 different chakras if you look at it from Hindu perspectives. There's 5 different energy centers if you look at it from a Buddhist perspective. And now science is starting to like have its own labels for the process of energy flowing through every single person. But if you were to look at the process of energy flowing through us, the whole concept is that there is energy centers within us that the energy flows through. And sometimes as humans we can be living in sin, we can be living in... When I say sin, it's an objective thing. I'd have to... Yeah, we're not going morality today. that's like a few hours of talking that we don't need to hear. We're talking about the analytical sides of things. But there's storehouses of where your energy flows through. The first one's the root chakra. And this is where most people are stuck. And that's why they don't realize that energy is flowing through them, because they're blocking themselves from the infinite. Through beliefs, through paradigms, through trauma. There's a whole bunch of things that can stop the energy flowing through you. So now that we're talking about energy aspect, let's actually transition into the energy side of things. So we're going to take a little break. See you in a minute. So in the previous section we discussed the components of physical reality and its nature. It can be quite dense, and the dense aspect of life is but a fraction of what actually exists in that space. It's only a 0.003% of what we're looking at. So when we look at something like this, with our 2 eyes, we can only see a small percentage of what this actually is. There's so much more to this than we perceive with our 5 senses. Looking for answers in the external world is counterproductive, because you're going against the voice that's been given to you and that everyone has access to, that guides them to the connection with the all. That's the way I see it. And I know it may contradict regular paradigms of what's out there, But take your time to listen and process this information and think about it. Like, does this feel intuitively true? If not, then fair enough, look into why it's not. But spiritual aspect, causal aspects, we have energy flowing through us. And the energy centers, one in the root, one sacral, one is your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, your third eye, and the crown chakra. These are like the different energies that are conceptualized within a rabbit hole of people that like to describe this energy. But an intuitive grasp of this is the goal. You don't need to look into different scriptures about this. Just intuitively grasping what you are and tapping into the components of what it is to be you is how we get this knowledge and apply it into our daily life. Because I fell into the rabbit hole of trying to learn about this aspect of life, that aspect of life, and almost needing to know something. But when you're in a state where you need to know something, you are almost repelling yourself from that. Because deep down we're connected to everything that there is, and every answer that you need is a question that you need to be able to produce to get out of yourself. To see that it comes out of you. Life comes out of you. It comes out of everyone. This is the whole rabbit hole of consciousness and energy and stuff. And these energy centers that it goes through, most people are stuck in the root one, which is the physical aspect. It's the gender, it's when you're thinking about your physical reality, the exterior. And people that are stuck in fight or flight emotions, because when you're in fight or flight, you're expressing this energy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when used in moderation. But many people hold a perspective that is like very survival orientated. It's very me against the world. And when you're in a state like that, energy is not free to flow through you because you're constantly using it. But if you were to allow this energy to flow from that aspect of you and start to transcend that paradigm, then you can allow this energy to flow through you by unlocking the locks that are formed, and they're called beliefs. Your beliefs hold you, lock you to what you are being right now. If you want to expand and become more, you got to be able to break the things that are contracting you, which is your beliefs. It's the structure of your life internally. And as you work up in energy, you start to go through like the gut one, the one that's called the sacral energy center. And this is like your creativity, your feelings, you being able to transmute and experience all that life has to offer through these emotions. But people that are very physical orientated, very like the way it looks instead of the way it is, can tend to ignore that guiding feeling of their feelings. Like they shut out, they try to distract themselves, they watch a bunch of things, they're scrolling on their things, they're using distractions to avoid being with their own emotions. This is how it gets blocked when it's around the tummy. And when you make your way up to the solar plexus, this is the one where it's like in control of it's not in control of, this is where the energy of confidence, of identity, of action comes into play. This is like your willpower almost, because it's like almost like keep your chest proud. You feel it when you're in that position and you're like open. And that's because you're allowing space for you to breathe fully and you're taking in deep breaths, and that's healthy. Stood up correct. Taking deep breaths. Because this is getting you into a state where you're calm. And when you're calm, there's less resistance because you can control yourself better. Because when you're in a state of excitement, you're all over the place. You can't catch onto the wave of the train that your mind is moving on. Like it's just flowing fast. So if you want to control and like get back to neutral, deep breaths, solar plexus, like open up a little bit. There's movements in like these rabbit holes that try to learn about this energy that's flowing through us. But that's a holistic approach of that particular energy center. And then the uniting one, one of the most powerful ones that we have is our heart chakra. This is what unifies all the unseen aspects of us and the physical aspects of us. Because everything that we've mentioned so far, the 3 energy centers, they've been all to do with like this world. But these ones that are higher are more to do with the unseen realm. That's why like people don't even know about the unseen realm, is because they've never actually let this energy flow through them naturally. They're consumed by anxiety or by overthinking or by depression or whatever the illness is. The symptom is that it's not flowing through. When energy flows through you with minimal resistance, that's when you're at ease. Things are simple. There's not as much resistance. There's not as much pain and suffering. But anyways, this is the invisible aspect. Let's start talking about like how it manifests in our reality. This is metaphysical concepts. When we're talking about thought forms and we're talking about emotions, this is visible if you're able to see electromagnetically. And of course, our eyes can't see like that. Some creatures can, but not the human that we've incarnated and we're stored in. And just to make you, like, to help you perceive this, have a look at our planet. In 3D reality, it just looks the way it looks like everyone thinks it looks like. But in the spectrum that we're not able to perceive with our 5 senses, there is much going on. Everything exists on a medium. Some people call it ether, some people call it God, some people call it energy, some people call it infinite intelligence. But this is what we all exist on and we came out of. And this is kind of like the empty space. This is the truth. This is why I have a little bit of a problem with a lot of mainstream perspectives of how religion is perceived. Because if you hold the perceptions of these pillars, foundational pillars, and you were to read those same scriptures, they'd have a completely different meaning. But because people haven't received information that allows them to perceive the nature of reality that's more in line with truth, the more of reality, the truth of reality, then they're just stuck in the 3-dimensional aspects of themselves. And you produce energy. You are more energetic than you are physical. You are much more energetic than you are physical. Your physical form is but an aspect of you. It's yourself, but it's not you. You really is energy. You are one with the omnipotent, omnipresent energy that exists within this reality. That's why people that perceive these ideas start to go a bit crazy and start calling themselves gods. What does that, how can someone call themselves a god? But I'll tell you what they mean when they say that. They're not saying that they are the all in terms of this form. They're saying that once you go deep into the empty space, into the depths of what's going on inside, you see the truth. You see what reality is really like. You see the causal aspects of reality, because the mental and the spiritual realm cause the physical realm. And this is the realm of your mind, your spirit, the unseen internal aspects of self. And when people go deep into this, into the place within, the spark that everyone has within, then that energy starts to correct the vessel, and that energy starts to flow all the way through us. And the more we're in a state where we allow it to flow through the whole of us with minimal resistance, the more we're growing our capacity to hold this energy. So when people say they're more connected to God, or when people say that they are God, they're saying that they're identifying with the energy. Because we have identity as one of the best tools to become. So if you want something more in your reality, you have to become more. And they're trying to grow their capacity to hold more of this energy. And you do that by holding awareness to how it flows through you, what you do in your day-to-day that allows this to flow better and easier. So it's a way of living life with minimal resistance in terms of internally. Because when life is free to flow through you, you see beauty, you see the true nature of this energy. But when you block it, and when you live in a way that's inharmonious with letting this energy flow through you, then there's blockage. Like it could be in the throat center, where you haven't been able to express yourself. You haven't found the voice, your voice. Your internal guide hasn't been grown because you've not been giving yourself proof of who you have in terms of like this image of this person that I need to become. That person is easily accessed by living the consciousness of that person, holding those beliefs, that identity, and then you start to give yourself proof by living the identity of that. And that's how the process of becoming more happens. So when people say, I am God, they are simply trying to align themselves to this energy that flows through the self, so they can hold more of it, grow the consciousness of that. But people can still do that and not call themselves that. They can still say like, it's perceiving God in a completely different way. Perceiving it as energy, as consciousness, is a better framework to comprehending it in comparison to the dogma that's found with a lot of religions. That's my problem with it. If you're a religious person, you probably wouldn't be watching this anyways, but even if you are and you are watching this, try to comprehend the principles of how reality is, so your intuition and your guide can be the most aligned to finding truth. Because the way your intuition works is, it's based on your energy. If you're energetically radiating something that's not aligned with the attributes of the divine, so for example, you're moving with more resistance in your life, you're holding stuff from the past, you're worrying about a future that hasn't happened, and because you're in this state, you're like using that energy, or you're investing your energy, you always invest in your energy into these different things that you give your attention to. So if your attention's constantly on the past, constantly on the future, then you're gonna be not letting life flow through you, because the only time is now. That's why time is a bit of an illusion, and it's only a property of this game that we're incarnated into. Because time, or timelessness, is the true nature of time. Like time in this game is like, yeah, I do this, I do that, then I do this, I think this, I think that, then I think this, like through a process. But that's okay, that's how we experience things, right? That's how we're formed and we're expressed in this game. But when you empty your attention, when you invest your attention in something that isn't your surroundings, isn't the people that's in your life, it isn't even about your identity and your personality and stuff, you just quiet your mind. And it's a process of meditation, like fully emptying your mind and focusing on nothing. And in that state, your brain starts to put connections together. Like this is shown in advanced meditators. There's a study that was done and they put ESG monitors, I think that's what it's called, that monitor the electromagnetic field of the mind, and they had like a visual representation of a normal person in comparison with someone who's been meditating for years, and the person who's practiced and perfected and mastered the process of stillness and emptiness and minimal resistance. So thinking about things is like, overthinkers, they can get stuck in here, but if you were to just be empty and just be sitting and doing nothing, that's when you start to grasp intuitively this energy, your state of being. That's why in reality creation, the most important aspect, well, not the most important, but a foundational pillar in being able to live as creator of things in this world, you have to be able to fathom that you're creating. What happens in here projects into your world. You don't see reality for what it is, you see reality for what you are, because your energy, because learning is a funny thing, for example, because you can't really learn anything because everything is already known deep down. But learning is like the process of remembering, because if you were to practice time and timelessness, which is a concept that we're going to be talking about in the next video, living in the present, timelessness, why time is an illusion and how you should perceive it for the healthiest way to let this energy flow through you, that will give you foundational pillars of what it is to live as infinite spirit, if you don't like the term being God, or you can word it as living as consciousness, or living in the spirit of nature, of the all, like moving yourself aligned to everything there is. That's a rabbit hole, yo. I've gone into too much, I think. Conclusion. Reality, the empty space, the invisible force that's in you, is more causal because it's the mental and spiritual realm, the unseen realm. And in our reality, everything has an unseen realm. And the more you're able to practice perceiving things with your mind, the more you're able to see energetically how things are moving. Like this is, in our day-to-day life, you'd see it as emotion. Like it's not something that you can directly describe and be able to like express, but the emotions are there and it's very intuitive and vague and abstract, but they're still there and you can still put labels to them and find accurate ways of encoding them, because our emotions are very powerful energy force in this world, because emotion is energy in motion, and this energy in motion that's flowing through us can be contractive and can make us feel small, make us feel not adept, we're not confident, we're anxious, we're depressed, we hate life, we're angry. These are all like contractive emotions. But when you free yourself of resistance and your energy is harmonized to beauty, that's when your frequency is no longer perceiving as much of the contractive emotions. You don't feel as much, you don't feel as angry. You found that inner calm and you're able to stay in the present and be okay. these are expansive emotions, because there's two ways you can visualize emotions manifesting that on you, on the self. They can contract you or they can expand you, and most of us love expansive feelings because we live in an expanding universe, and that's the nature of how things are going. Love to expand, love to grow, love to transcend, things like that. And if you would follow the nature of that with your emotions, you would be dwelling more in the emotions of expansiveness, the enlightenment, the bliss, the calm, the joy, the excitement. All of these emotions expand. They're like positive aspects that we can see life through, because your emotions are like filters as well. Whatever you feel, life will give you conditions, people, and circumstances that correspond with the emotion that you're feeling. Like, feelings are they just want to exist. Whenever you feel something, you're creating the consciousness of that. So if you are constantly being depressed, you're constantly feeding into the identity of a degenerate, then it's going to be harder to get out of that. The sooner you start redirecting your attention to that part of you that is more in line with expansiveness, with the nature of how reality is, that's when you'll start to feel more aligned with the world. Like, you can make things happen. You don't feel out of place. Like, you belong. You found home. But it's about finding home. We'll leave it on that now. I've already said too much. Been a blessing. Love you all. And if you like this, if you've got a friend that could do with listening to some of this, send it to my man. Send it to whoever needs to know about these concepts, especially like these dogmatic, structured, closed-minded people. Maybe it's time to open your mind to a new perspective so you can see magic in the world that you've never seen before, and that's from living as cause. And on that note, you are an energetic being. We are all energy more than matter. Matter is an illusion. In a bit.